Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and it's officially 2015. So I'm going to talk about my 10 favorite movies of 2014. Now there were a few movies I didn't get to see yet, including Birdman, which I really want to see, and Gone Girl. So this is just the best movies that I saw last year, like leading up to January 1st of this year. Up until then, those are the best movies that I saw in 2014. So I'm going to start out with two honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is a movie that I didn't think it was that great. I was actually a teeny bit disappointed with it, but just the fact that it actually happened is just a really cool thing. I just wanted to talk about it, and that is the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. Now, the director of this movie, James Rolfe, I've been following his work with the Angry Video Game Nerd series and his short films online for many years, a long time, and I've been following the progress of the movie since he first announced it, that he was actually doing it. And that was in 2011, I think it was. I know they started shooting in 2012. So I've been following this movie for a long time, and the fact that it finally got released is really cool. This is James Rolfe's first actual movie, and it's really cool to see that finally come through for him. And it's an entertaining flick. I had issues with it, but it was cool just to see his movie come to life, and it's a fun B movie with. I love the cheesy effects in it, and it always just makes movies more fun. It's just a fun movie, and happy it got made. And my second honorable mention is Tusk, the new Kevin Smith movie. And I'm mentioning this because I had issues with it, but I still recommend people to see it, because it's such a strange, bizarre movie that just has to be seen to believe. And don't go online looking for clips of it. Just sit down and watch the movie. The first half is really creepy and actually pretty suspenseful. Surprising coming from Kevin Smith that it's actually pretty creepy. And the second half is just crazy, and I really recommend checking it out. So those are my two honorable mentions. Now on to the actual top 10 list. Starting with number 10. This is a movie that I had no expectations for and I thought looked like crap, judging by all the trailers. But it turned out to be one of the best action sci-fi movies I've seen in a while. Edge of Tomorrow. Dang. The trailers did not do this movie justice. This is a smart movie. The action scenes are amazing. The first scene where they land on the beach, the first battle scene, is insane. I love Tom Cruise's character, that Tom Cruise was playing a character. He wasn't playing Tom Cruise. It wasn't playing the Tom Cruise is awesome at everything. This character was an idiot at times and didn't exactly know what to do, and I thought that was something different. He wasn't just playing the typical Tom Cruise role. He was playing a part. Emily Blunt was great in it, and it was just an awesome movie from beginning to end that just worked, I wouldn't say flawlessly, but it worked very well. And it was an awesome flick. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a great time. Number 9. Now, horror is my favorite genre. I love it. But I haven't seen too many recent horror movies, just because none of them look good. They all look generic, and so I really haven't seen any recent horror movies, except for The Babadook. Now, this is not a very well-known movie. It's a smaller film, but if you like horror, this is worth checking out. It has some genuinely creepy moments, and it's actually an interesting story with characters that you're actually able to follow and actually care about, which you don't see very often, especially in modern horror movies. And the main actress in this movie, her performance was incredible. It was just great. And there's even a kid in this movie who is really good. You buy him as, at the beginning of the movie, he's really annoying and you hate him. But when he's genuinely afraid and frightened, you buy it 100%. And there are scenes in this movie, every scene with the actual, Babadook, creature thing, really freaked me out. It just creeped me out. Didn't help that I was watching this movie late at night. And I was sitting on my bed, so the whole room was surrounding me, all this darkness, 2 in the morning, watching this movie. Creeped me out, and every time there was a creepy scene, I was hearing something outside my door, which freaked me out. But awesome movie. The sound design is some of the best sound design I've heard in a movie in recent times. There's some creepy sounds in this movie. The sound is great. So just awesome horror film. Check it out if you can. If you like horror, you'll like this movie. Number 8. So there's another movie that I had no expectations for and didn't really care to see, but turned out to be one of the best action movies I've seen in a while, and that is John Wick. Keanu Reeves' comeback movie. This movie was awesome. The action scenes were intense, and there's some great shootouts. The whole scene in the nightclub, I still remember that scene. That scene's great. I love the world the movie created. Like, I want to see a spin-off based on the Hotel the Continental, which is in this movie. I want to see a spin-off of that. Create its own world. It was really funny. It's a movie that the plot doesn't make the movie great. It's everything else in it. It's the writing. There's some really hilarious moments. There's some great lines in the movie. And it's the characters. It's John Wick, who's an awesome character, and all these other people. Just a really fun action flick that, yeah, like I said, doesn't have the best story, but it doesn't need it, because it has everything else that makes it awesome. Number 7. The new movie from Christopher Nolan, Interstellar. What I love about this movie, it's the kind of movie you don't get to see every day. It's this big, huge budgeted sci-fi flick, but it's also a thought-provoking story with like interesting characters and very interesting and different ideas that make you use your brain, which we don't get very often. Usually the big budget movies nowadays are just big explosions, action scenes, and then the more thought-provoking stuff is the littler movies. So that's the thing I liked most about this movie. But adding on to that is that the effects in this movie are great. They are so seamless that at times I'm just watching this ship fly around space. I buy it because the effects were that great. The performances were all great. Matthew McConaughey was awesome. The one scene where he's watching his kids on the video and as they get older is so gut-wrenchingly sad. And even when it gets to the third act, I know a lot of people think like the third act ruined the movie for it. I didn't mind it. I bought it. It was good. I mean, it had a few issues here and there. But for the most part, that was a really good third act. Just an awesome movie that is a great experience and a different kind of movie that we don't get to see all the time. So that's why I was really happy to see it. Even with some of the issues I had with the story, it was still a great theater experience. One of the best visual theater experiences I've had in a long time. This movie was groundbreaking on an effects visual level, and it was just definitely worth seeing. Number 6. Now, I never had any issues with this actor, but I never cared for him that much until I saw him in this movie. And that is Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler. Dang, Jake Gyllenhaal's insane. His character in this movie is such a memorable character. He's crazy, but he has these goals that you understand what he's going, you understand what he's thinking, like, it kind of makes sense what he's doing, even though it's wrong. And so it was really interesting to follow his character throughout the story. And there's moments in the ending where I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And just a very engaging movie from start to finish. Very well shot, very well acted. I love all the performances in this movie. Just a really creepy movie, even though it's not a horror film, but just because of Gyllenhaal's performance. And just an awesome movie that you need to see. Number 5. The biggest gamble that Marvel Studios has taken so far, Guardians of the Galaxy. Do I really have to say anything else after that? Everybody's seen Guardians of the Galaxy. Again, it was the biggest gamble that Marvel did, and it paid off brilliantly. This was such a fun sci-fi action adventure. All the characters were great and memorable. It's hilarious. Like, I don't really know what else I can say that hasn't been said about Guardians already, but Guardians of the Galaxy, loved it. Not my favorite Marvel movie of the year. We'll get to that in a bit. But overall, just a great movie that is on the top list of Marvel movies for me. Number 4. One of the most mind-blowing action movies I've ever seen. The Raid 2. Where do I begin? I've seen this movie like 3 times. And all 3 times my mind has been blown by the end. I'm just still intense just sitting there watching it. The last half of this movie is crazy. The action scenes are some of the best I've seen in recent time. The car chase in this movie is awesome. That's what I was thinking about after rewatching this movie. It's a great action movie, and there's no explosions in it whatsoever. There's no explosions, because it doesn't need it. It has insane fight choreography. The kitchen fight scene at the end is such an amazing scene, and it makes up for it. This movie does have slow moments, because the movie is 2.5 hours long, and it is very story focused. And I would be lying if I didn't say the story wasn't the most interesting thing ever. a little bit generic, but it's still worth it to sit through it to get to these action scenes. And there's action scenes spread throughout, and they're all insane. Hammer Girl and Baseball Batman, when they're going around killing people, that's just insane. This movie's awesome. If you like action, you gotta see this. It's a great film. Number 3. Everybody says Guardians was a big surprise, but I honestly think I was more surprised with Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Because I was thinking beforehand, what movie was I more surprised with? Guardians, I didn't know what to expect, and it ended up turning out great. Captain America, going into it, you had Iron Man 3 and Thor 2 before, and those were both okay. They weren't anything special. So you're like, okay, now Captain America 2, let's see what they do. And this movie ended up being phenomenal. I mean, the fact that this movie has such an impact on the Marvel Universe was probably the most surprising thing. The fact that the stuff this movie does that totally affects and changes the Marvel Universe, I was not expecting that going in. And then you have Robert Redford, the classic actor in this movie, who I figured was going to be in it for maybe a few scenes. They were going to maybe film like 3-4 scenes with him and then spread it throughout the movie to make him feel like he's a part of it. But he's a main character and a main part of this story, and I didn't expect that going in. The action scenes were great. I love how this is more of a political spy thriller, and one thing this has that's better than my number 1 pick, which we'll get to, is that even though this movie heavily focuses on like continuity between other films, you can still watch it as a standalone film, and it's still an entertaining movie. I showed this to my aunt who was home for Christmas, because I know she likes spy movies and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, she's never seen a Marvel movie before, so she doesn't know anything about Marvel, but I was like, you're going to like this movie, don't worry, I'll explain some things along the way. And she ended up really liking it in the end, because it's an awesome spy thriller, which I love how Marvel is starting to do these like different genres now. Like you have Guardians, which is like a space opera, and then now, you know, Captain America, which is a spy thriller. It's really making this universe feel unique and different. Every movie's not just the same action movie. So it's just an awesome film that I will say I think is better than Guardians. You know, you can't really compare them because they're two totally different movies, like I just said, but just a surprise. Number 2. I loved the first movie in this rebooted series and had very high expectations for the sequel. And the sequel blew these expectations out of the water. I am talking about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. The movie that makes you care for CGI talking apes. And that's due to Andy Serkis's brilliant performance as Caesar, and even all the other apes in the movie, including the actor who played Koba, who is one of the best villains we've had in a movie in a while. I feel he was a great villain. And the effects. The effects in the first movie were great, but this just elevated it to a whole new level. All the scenes where we're just focused on apes for a good amount of screen time, which is the apes doing stuff, and you're buying it. And the CGI is incredible. I mean, I could tell for the most part when the characters are CGI. Like, I know Caesar is CGI, I can tell, but the character of Maurice, I can't tell that that's CGI. I'm still like in shock that that character is CGI. He looks so seamless and so it doesn't look cartoony or anything. And this movie was also unpredictable. In the trailers, you see all the scenes of the apes attacking the humans, that big like action scene. You're like, oh, that's the climax of the movie. And then that's just the middle of the movie, and you're like, whoa, wait, what's happening? What's gonna happen now? And you were so invested in the characters. Like, this movie was a little bit hard to watch because I wanted the apes and the humans to be happy and live their own lives, but you know it wasn't gonna happen. You know it's not gonna work out. You know the apes have to take over, and it's just like, oh, I'm conflicted. It's just, phenomenal movie. And time for my number 1. Now, this movie was actually my most anticipated of the year and ended up being my favorite. This movie shows that this long-running franchise that seemed to be dead at some point is still kicking, and kicking very strong, with X-Men: Days of Future Past. Thank you, Bryan Singer, for returning to this franchise, because this movie was amazing. I have very little actual issues with this movie. Most of my issues with this movie are just like small little things, like it was a little goofy, you know, involving JFK with all that stuff. That was a little goofy. And some of the effects near the end were, I felt they could have been fixed up a little bit, but that's about it. All my worries going into this movie of overly complicated time travel plot, not enough character screen time for the main characters, Quicksilver looking very stupid, none of that mattered because everything else worked in this movie. I loved how Wolverine, who is like this pretty much the central character of the story, he has to go back in time, convince everybody, you know, to work together. He's not the main character. He's not the focus of this movie. As much as I love X-Men 2, that movie's great, it does focus on Wolverine a little bit too much of the time. And this one doesn't. I never felt like Wolverine was the main character. And having just erasing X-Men 3 from the timeline, thank you. And that was awesome just to see that stuff that happens in that ending. That ending was great. It did what you wanted it to do, because everybody was like, does this movie erase stuff from X-Men 3? Does it fix problems? And that's what everybody wanted it to do, and it did it. And that was awesome. That was great to see like your expectations pay off. And that was awesome. And I love how this movie it was focusing on characters. And I love that, because things that I really noticed with the Marvel Studios films is that their third acts always are the same thing. They're always kind of the same. They're these big, overblown action scenes. And as much as I loved Guardians, I was the least invested during the climax, because it was just a bunch of ships flying around stuff. And even with Captain America, I did the same. But this wasn't that. I love how the climax of this movie wasn't a giant action scene. It was very controlled. There's big moments. You have Magneto lifting up the football stadium and dropping it around the White House. And then you had all the mutants in the future fighting off the Sentinels. But that was it. No like insane explosions. Nothing crazy, just more controlled and character focused. And I love that. This was just a great film and my favorite X-Men movie. Honestly, X-Men 2 was always my favorite. I loved that one since I saw it in theaters when I was 6 years old. I've loved it. But this one surpassed that. So that's my top 10 favorite movies of the year. 2014 was an amazing year for movies. A lot of great stuff happened. And I'm really looking forward to 2015, which looks like to be an insane year for movies. And I'm going to try to, me and Sam, we're going to try to review a bit more. I know the past couple months, like there was a good amount of movies that we saw that came out that we just didn't get around to reviewing. And I'm going to try to review every movie that I can. So I'm going to try to do more this year. And this year is going to be awesome because we got some big stuff. And that's about it for now. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.